Good morning, Shira.
Good morning, Jackie. So nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. Where are you zooming in from?
I am zooming in from Tel Aviv, Israel.
Shira, I'm really excited to talk to you. As I mentioned when I reached out to you, I'm fascinated, but I'm really encouraged by Femtech. A lot of women feel that we are being overlooked by research, by the medical industry, by society, by the media, because we're of a certain age. And I really feel like by, exploring femtech and bringing it to the front, women will see the remarkable work that's being done by women like you to support other women
Mhm,
through their health and wellness journey. But part of wellness to me is career. This
mhm.
is a stage in our life when we're being either aged out or we're building the confidence to try something new. So I won't go into that too much because that'll be a rant, but I'm really inspired by what you have been doing with SmartReach. And I wonder if you can tell me a little bit about what SmartReach is, and
Sure.
then I'm going to grill you with questions.
Hey, no problem. So just high level. So I've been running a lead gen agency for the last 14 years. This is my second company that I started. I have a lot of great, things to share about my first company and what it was like, also building a company as a young female. I started in my 20s, my first company. This company I've been running for the last 14 years. And about a year ago, I pivoted from a service-based company only to a tech company. And I built my own technology. I kind of was cooking this idea for many, many years. And the concept is really how to build a really great list of prospects that have shown some type of buyer behavior or intent signal, and then how to really use AI to hyper personalize that email at scale. So that's what SmartReach.ai does in a nutshell.
And the name says it all. Of course, I had to still Google it.
Yeah.
I think, okay, so like before we dive into the background of that, it's a
Yep.
great tool because like someone like me, I'm always reaching out to experts and thought leaders and influencers, and it's hard to keep track of it all because I concentrate on so many different areas on health, wellness, and lifestyle. So I can see this being a tool that would keep someone like me with ADD completely organized. So thank
Yes,
you. Thank
my
you for
pleasure.
your invention. And on behalf of all women with ADHD, thank you. Um, Now, starting your first company, I know we're going to focus on Smart Reach, but your first company, you had a few things against you. Getting investor money, I guess. Did you get investor money with the first one?
I actually have some really good stories around that. Yeah,
Mm.
so when I started my first company, I have four children, two boys and then two girls. My
Wow.
oldest is already married. My second is engaged to be married in July. Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
God.
I got
Okay.
married very young. Okay. I got married when I
Yeah.
just
I'll
was
say.
21 and I had my first baby when I was 23.
Okay.
And I did always did things very early. I went through university in 2 years and got my bachelor's of management information systems in 2 years. I always wanted to, start my own company. I first worked for another company, kind of built my way up. And then I was living in Israel at the time, but we moved back to the States. And I was living in New Jersey. And my third daughter was maybe two, a little bit under two. And I was pregnant with my fourth daughter, Daniela. And I was going through a fundraising round. So the concept was, this really dates me. The concept was to allow brands to communicate with consumers on their mobile device. And this is pre-smartphone. So everything was text messaging, the first time brands could actually contact you right in your own hands. And I also hired developers and built out the technology. So it was a very technical company as well, and built the architecture and went for funding and ended up raising $10 million, which was really great, but had so many difficulties back then. So, for example, we were in, late term sheet stage with a fund, with a VC. And I was talking, they were in Boston, I was in New Jersey, we were talking on the phone. all the time. And when we started talking, I was very early pregnant. And then when we were ready to sign, I was 8 months pregnant. And they asked, can you
Oh,
fly into Boston? Now, I had obviously never said that I was pregnant, nor that I had 3 other children at home. And I flew in and I decided I was very conscious of the fact that this was going to be a problem.
yeah.
And they would at least interpret it as a problem.
Yep.
And I came early into the boardroom. I took my chair and I sat with my belly under my chair. And we went through the entire meeting and ready to sign. At the end, the handshakes, I stood up and their face, all men, I'm the only female in the room.
Of
Okay.
course.
And their faces just dropped. And they literally said to me, how are you going to run this company if you're going to be a mom? And I said, oh, this is my fourth. And they were like, and needless to say, they didn't sign. They pulled out.
Wow.
Mhm,
Wow. Okay, so
mhm.
you had a few things going. You had reverse ageism going. You're in your
Yes,
20s. Uh,
yes,
you're a woman. You have
yes,
kids, you're a mom.
yeah,
Um, and you're in tech. It's kind
yes,
of a tech bro culture, right? Especially
yes,
back then. Okay,
yeah.
so I can only imagine how that conversation went afterwards, but you went through all that and yet here you are. You've done it again. How? How did you do it again?
Honestly, I decided I'm not going for funding. I mean, that was my one rule for myself. I was like, I don't need that. I'm going to fund this myself. And I decided to build this company, take the profits from my Legion company, which owns both the technology and the service-based company, use the profits and our own, our own finances, my husband and myself, and we're full investors. I said, I'm not now. The irony is that now that I've built this and launched it, and it's very timely.
Mhm.
We're getting a lot of inquiries from investors and VCs that would like to invest. And I
Mm.
keep turning them down and they're being pretty pushy. So I just thought that, came full circle. Yeah.
Well, you could shut them down pretty quickly on the query by letting them know that you're a woman and you have 4 kids.
You know what? I have to say, it doesn't stop them now. It's interesting. I definitely feel, I feel that that's evolved a lot, or.
Yeah.
However, I'll tell you where it hasn't evolved is the banking system, because I did take out a business loan during the war, okay? Because I've also been living through a war the last year and a half. And they had my husband sign on the business loan. Now I'm a corporation, okay? So there's no
Mm.
need to personal. But because I'm female, they were very concerned. And my husband's a physician and they love doctors, especially men doctors, and they wanted him to sign on this business loan. And I was like, are you still in the 1930s? Like, why are you asking me for my husband to sign this? But
Actually, I think, 1970s was
1970,
yeah,
exactly.
that's a long
Exactly.
time ago.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. So I would say that that hasn't evolved, and that just again just verified my feeling of like, no, I'm not going in that, direction this time. I'm going to do
yeah.
this on my, yeah.
Well, good for you because you've been up against it.
Yeah.
And I do hear these stories a lot, and I definitely, I'm very anti male bashing. My husband is super supportive, lets me take the reins on most things. So, it should be a more collaborative experience, and you had to prove yourself, but I guess like as a new business startup, we all have to prove ourselves. It's a little
Yeah.
tough when you also have the gender card. Um,
Yeah.
Now, you've told me what inspired you to start SmartReach. Well, you told me why you did it. What inspired you, though, to actually take that big risk? Because that was a lot of work and that was a big risk. And you were pregnant. Like, I've been pregnant. It's hard to, in those final months to get anything done with clarity. For me, it was.
Yeah. Well, that was my previous company with Ping Mobile. With
Hmm.
SmartReach, that was about a
Sorry.
year
Yeah.
ago. That's okay. It was about a year ago that I started the technology. And to be honest with you, what inspired me was everything that I was personally going through.
Mhm.
Um, I live in Israel, and my two oldest are boys, and they were in the army, doing their reserve duty during everything that was happening. My husband was also, he's a reserve doctor as well. And my daughter is a paramedic. And we were basically all in, and it was extremely stressful. You know, I wouldn't hear from my son for 2 or 3 weeks, not knowing where he is, what he's doing. And to be honest with you, I felt that my brain needed some more stimulation to move away from my mundane. I really
Yeah.
needed something to focus on so that I wasn't sitting there looking at the news, worried every second.
Yeah.
And
Good.
inspired me to really build something that I've been cooking for many years. So this has been in my head cooking. How can I automate this? How can I make this better? How can I do things that a human eye or, capacity can't do? And so I decided, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. And I would say the other factor was that my industry really changed in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
2 years, but last year really, really drastically, where the regular lead generation, it just wasn't working like it was in the past. We used to, run regular campaigns, book 5 to 10 calls, no problem. With Gmail spam filters and a lot of changes in AI actually hurt our industry because everybody's able to create an email and write an email. And so
Yeah.
and then you get inundated with emails and you really have to cut through the clutter and really stand out in order to be seen. So that also inspired me. So there were kind of, a few reasons where I was like, okay, this is where I'm going to take the company.
Okay. That is you raised so many good points there. But the distraction and just it's funny how like something so challenging as starting a business can help you focus so much when you have all these, things going on around you, whether you're, 8 months pregnant or you're living through a war.
Yeah.
Um so kudos to you. I feel like I just would have curled up and had a nap until it was all over, like seriously. But um what I love about what you've done here is I find in my own experience that sometimes women face challenges in networking and like business networking and sales. It feels like it can still be a very much male-driven environment, but networking is not. It's not that easy. Like I think people think networking is just simply swapping cards, following up, and asking for a favor. It's really about developing relationships, and it's a give and take. And if it's not a give and take, it's not a really strong connection in your network. Um, so, how would you say that an AI driven outreach can help level the playing field for women and without it being inauthentic?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really great about AI is that if you have that addition of the human level and the human intervention, it can be very authentic. So, for example, the evolution of AI video is amazing now. And I actually find that when we have women in the videos, they perform better than men. Also
Mm,
on LinkedIn, we also find that women profiles, especially in sales, do perform better than the male profiles.
really
Yeah, very interesting. In our space, I think it's also because there are not many women in our space.
could be.
Yes, so especially founders from, women-led SaaS founders in sales, there's maybe one or two others that I know of that have like the CEO of Chili Piper. She's a force, and I love just, following them and interacting with them and sharing with them. But I would say I've actually found a lot of it to be advantageous to us now as well. And I think that the content writing also, like when you plug things into AI, you can go into ChatGPT, you can go into Claude.
Yeah.
There's so many others that you can, type into Gemini, and you could say, I am female, and I'd like to connect to this other female. We actually ran a campaign that was all around the fact that we are women in sales, and we
Really?
connected with other women in sales. And it was one of our best performing campaigns because there is this feeling, like you're saying, of like, we need to stick together, and we
Mm,
need to support each other and we need to help each other. So we connect and say, hey, my head of sales said, hey, my name's Vanessa. I'm a female, in sales, and it's so hard to come across other females. Like, kudos to everything you've done. I see that you surpassed your quarterly goals. Like, would love to hear how you were able to do that and share some war stories with you of what it's like being female in this space. And we
yeah.
did really well building that rapport and that connection. So I would say for me, I've used it to, our advantage.
I love that because I do think I hope we break down that barrier soon with campaigns like this. But I do, women, we do band together.
Yeah.
But I love working with men too. So I hope that one day we don't have this issue where it's a gender issue, because there's so much we can do when we collaborate, and it's
Absolutely.
frustrating to feel that we still have to like stick together.
Yeah,
Um,
agree.
so it's funny what you said about AI. So I call ChatGPT my boyfriend, but have been cheating on ChatGPT with cloud. So when ChatGPT says you've reached your daily quota, I write it and say, okay, fine, I'm going to go over to cloud now. Um, it doesn't care, but I do use it. I use it a lot, and I feel like I've become a little more savvy now, but I use it for my content to help me figure out issues that might be for women in my audience.
Mhm.
And you know what? Sometimes it comes up with issues I've never even thought of, and they're my own issues too. But you get so
Mhm.
deep into something that if you keep creating on your own, you kind of miss anything new, or you might be missing the obvious. So that's like that to me is great. And also, again, with as someone with ADHD, it's very hard to start and complete a task in a day because so many other things happen. And I don't just blame ADHD. I blame tech for like the
Oh, yeah.
Zuckerbergs out there for shortening our attention spans. I don't know.
WhatsApp, they're coming in every second, and the
Yeah,
Slack and the Slacks and yeah, it's nonstop tech from
yeah.
everywhere. Yeah.
And I can't blame Mark Zuckerberg entirely. But you know what I mean? Like, I mean, content, even as a writer, when I write for brands, like it's getting shorter and now it's getting longer. Like it's playing with our attention span. Um, and so, my like kids don't like to watch movies anymore. They just want to go on something quick. They want that dopamine hit. Um,
Mhm.
so based on that, uh, femtech to me is such an important area for women, investment wise, but also advancement wise. I love seeing what's coming out of this space, and I'm going to be covering more and more. Like, there's a lot of health-driven products that are really well thought out and taking like old technology, old instruments from decades, even the last century, and updating them with a female perspective. Like, we know
Yeah.
what hurts, we know what feels good, we know what our body needs. Um, so based on like what femtech is able to do and how many women are behind it now, what trends do you see in femtech and AI? I'm going to focus on AI with you, but femtech and AI that excite you the most.
I mean, it's interesting for me because I have the advantage of having clients that are, all different B2B companies, right? In all different industries, like a plethora of countries and industries. And we're finding more and more that are coming to us that have created some type of AI specifically made for women. So it could be, for example, something for IVF, right? That can help
Mhm.
you figure out your cycle and figure out when you should be taking your shots and all these different things that they have built within that. And then we have another client that is focused only on offering different AI type of support for women in companies that are going through menopause. And I thought that was so interesting because nobody really talks about menopause and what it's like to go through. You hear, there's a lot of focus obviously on maternity leave and paternity leave and pregnancy, but this stage in our life, it's very interesting. And there, a company that we did actually really well for was like, listen, women between, 40 to 55, really, that are in your workforce need this
Mhm.
support. And wouldn't it be great if you can offer them this tool where they can chat with other women, ask questions, get answers, understand what everyone else is going through. Is this just me? What are these this heat that I'm
Yeah.
feeling, intense heat all the time at work? What are
Mhm.
some strategies I could do to combat that in the middle of a board meeting? There's so many things that we have to deal with. And I definitely see technology in the medical space specifically. I'm also blessed because my husband is a neonatologist. He deals with women every day. And my sister-in-law is a high-risk OBGYN. And so, in this space, there's so many companies that approach them to go into a specific clinical trial, and a lot of it evolves around AI now. And how can we best leverage all this information that is now at our fingertips and use, LLMs as well to kind of train it to what we need to do, and provide that support to parents, of children in the NICU, to women that are going through high risk pregnancies, to women that are going through menopause at each stage of their life. And each one is kind of, what I find, focusing on a different area. And there's just so much more support. And I think it's only going to get better and better. It definitely has its negative components as well. Like you mentioned,
Yeah. There
distractions
are
and,
a lot of, we're seeing job loss
oh
and we're
yeah,
seeing, our careers being taken away. It's horrible, but I will say, I'm older than you, but I had the first Mac Apple Classic computer on my desk with a floppy drive, like a
I remember those. Yes.
26-inch or 12-inch, or I don't even know how big that thing was.
Yeah.
And I had like an actual file system for floppy drives. And everyone thought, oh my God, the robots are coming. But you know what? It did replace the typewriter. It made
Yeah.
my life easier, but it also created more industry around it. Someone had to make the floppy drives. Someone
Exactly.
had to make the
That's what's
computer,
happening
someone had
now.
to program, right? So whilst, one area got aged out, new jobs were created. And that's my hope for AI. But
Yes.
when say menopause in the workplace, this is like my big gripe. I don't believe that women need to sit in a boardroom with male counterparts and younger women and talk about vaginal dryness, brain fog, and all the issues that come because
For sure.
we are human, and what's going to happen to me is discrimination. Like if you're looking at me and I'm saying, "Oh yeah, I get hot flashes," and I'm asking questions in a menopause lunch and learn, you might be looking at me as my manager going, "Holy crap, this is coming her way. She's not going to be able to stay on top of this account." And like I'm not going to talk comfortably about my physical symptoms with male counterparts in the room. It's inappropriate. It's none of their business. I do think everyone needs to be educated on it, but not any more than pregnancy or menstruation in the workplace.
Oh, agreed. It's just not, so I
It,
agree 100%. I think what they're offering was more private, that you could do it in your own time, in your own
that's
space,
what
like
I
not
mean.
necessarily in front
Like
of
having
everybody.
that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
having that like more intimate setting.
More, yeah.
Women talk about this, and I've been working in menopause since like 2016. Women talk more openly in small, intimate spaces. They'll go
Yeah.
to a great show to learn and they'll be in a big group, but they're not going to open up. And I don't blame them. I wouldn't either. Um, work environments need to understand it and support it. Absolutely 100%. And I encourage men in the workplace to understand it because if they have a female partner, it's good for them to have that knowledge too. It'll hopefully save their relationship. Um,
Absolutely.
but the idea of an app to help us understand and connect us to those resources and, say, hey, if this is what's happening, hair loss, this could be the thyroid thing, it could be whatever.
Yeah.
And like I have a WhatsApp group, so I'm old tech. And the women in there are just chatting away and sharing information on things they've tried and resources and go to this kind of like, doctor, or these are questions I asked. It's great. I mean, it's not scientific, it's not medical, but it's a community where, especially when
Absolutely.
women are feeling depression and anxiety, I can see them supporting each other. And
Absolutely.
I have a lot of anxiety right now, and I'm like, I go into the group and I'm like, oh, not alone. I'm not alone. This is not abnormal.
That's all we
So
want, that you're not alone. So all of these, and also not alone, that other people are having these symptoms as well, and it's not
yeah,
just you, and you're normal and this is normal, right? So it
it's
just validates it.
100% club. If
Yeah,
you're a woman, you're going through it.
absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and I love, this is what I mean. I love to see Femtech come in here and say, okay, you know what? We're not going to just say you're at that age. It is what it is. We're going to, because we know we're either going through it or going to go through it. We're going to develop products to help you and us, like ourselves, like, because we know it's not just a physical thing. Like my example of this is when you're in a boardroom and you're standing there in front of your peers, your clients, and say you are in like that 40 to 55 age group where as a woman, ageism is starting to creep in and you have a hot flash. It's not cute like the pregnant girl who forgets something because she has baby brain and everyone laughs. It's you get discriminated against. People worry about you. They worry more because it's more of a permanent state, you know? But when you have that hot flash, like, you're not thinking, "Oh my gosh, how can I cool down? I'm so hot." You're actually stressing out, making it worse because you're thinking, "Oh my god, they know how old I am. Oh my god, they're thinking I can't do this. Oh my god, like, what if after this, I don't get a promotion, or I get taken off this account?" Like, there's a lot more to a hot flash than just the heat. Um, anyway, so I could go on forever about this because, like, it drives me crazy. What about, you're a female CEO in tech. I know you've had the barriers of investors, and also, there are the emotional barriers, there are the physical barriers of societal barriers. There's the war that's going on around you. There was, in your past, there was trying to do all this while you were pregnant and looking after young children. Um, a lot of us might have given up, and you didn't. So I just want to know, do you have some advice that you would give to other women, either who are looking to break into your industry, Femtech, or just to keep going in general when it comes to being a startup?
I mean, for me, it's always about keeping your eye on the prize. There's always going to be distractions. There's always going to be external factors. There's going to be a lot of naysayers, many, especially if you're going for funding, that are going to say, nah, I don't think this is going to be big. I mean, if you talk to the early potential investors of Airbnb, they're kicking themselves because they thought the idea was ridiculous, right? So
Yes.
you're going to hear a lot of no's. And you're going to have a lot of, things that happen in your life that you're like, should I keep going? Should I keep going? For me, first of all, having an amazing support system around me. So, like
Mhm.
you said, my husband is extremely supportive. Having the right team members as well was also crucial for me. And having, I really take the motherly role as the CEO in my company as well, and try to infuse and nurture a lot as well,
Mhm.
and try to enable them to have that work-life balance. So keeping that mission for me in place also, just in terms of giving back. I don't know if you've seen, but my company every month has a random act of kindness, where we
Yes.
go in their, specific countries. They have a certain amount of money because no matter what trying times we're going through, we always have the ability to give. And giving just also makes you feel like you have a purpose. So
Mhm.
remembering your purpose and remembering your vision and why you started this company to begin with, and keep your eye on that. You don't let yourself get distracted by a million other things.
Would you alter that advice in any way if you were encouraging a woman to explore femtech as a career? I guess we don't even really call it a career, I guess, but if you want to get into femtech and you have an idea and you want to help and you can do it, this idea is solid, you're going to be up against a lot, I'm sure. So how would that advice apply to femtech specifically?
Think it goes back to what we were saying earlier, which is talk to your potential customers, right? So
Mhm.
you know that you have that backing of like, wait, this is something that people really need. This is a pain that has yet to be solved. And I am representing all these women that need that pain solved, right? So
Mhm.
you just keep pushing through because you know that you're that voice and that representation and that you're solving something that has yet to be solved. And I think that if you can find that and help other women, and help, other people in general, but, for this purpose, other women in femtech, by solving something that really doesn't exist and leveraging the technology that does exist now,
Mhm.
it's a win-win. So I always like to think about that when I close my eyes at night, like, who am I helping? Who have I helped today? What is my mission? What is my goal? How am I going to, leave when I leave this world, right? What is going to be left from my presence? How have I helped and contributed to society? So I like to always look at that and think about that. So it takes you beyond just your immediate, tough moments or tough investor call or pitch, and takes it to the grander, look at the world and your purpose. So I got a little deep here, but that's really where I focus on, because it's so important for me to like help others, whether it's helping other Israelis or other women that are coping with their husbands being in war. There's just so much that we go through that we need to realize, oh, wait, there is something here that needs to be solved. I also started a charity, way at the beginning of Corona, actually, because I saw this need of a lot of people in the community were in like the travel industry and their jobs were completely shut down. And a
Yeah.
lot of restaurants, nobody were going to. So I came up with this idea to do table to table. And that was like basically raising funds and ordering from the restaurants and sending it to the people in the community that didn't have food. So it was a win-win. We were helping local businesses and we were helping. And then when the war broke out, I extended it to helping soldiers that were just sent to, down south and didn't have a raincoat or didn't have the gear that they needed, or families that were displaced. You don't understand how many, honestly, tampons and pads we bought for women that were displaced and didn't have their stuff with them, or soldiers, women soldiers that didn't have their
Yeah.
products with them.
You don't
So
have a lot of time to prepare, and so you're
time.
able to kind of like see, you're able to think of those things. I hate to say this, but as a woman, because you think, oh, if that was me, what, oh yeah, what if I needed this? Like, how does that play out? And that's really important to have that female perspective, not just in this situation, but like in obstetrics. That's a word I'll never be able to say. But gynecology, anyway, we're
Yes.
gonna go that word. Um, but menopause, and menopause in your career, like these are areas we don't really think about. So it does, like femtech to me is not just about bringing the product to the market. It is about the thinking behind the product that
Absolutely.
may not get considered. And in fairness, if you have never had a baby or a period or menopause,
It's
like
hard.
all men, how would you be able to anticipate a product that might be needed? However, also, you shouldn't also shut down products and say they're too niche because you don't know. So, yeah, anyway, our conversation was so inspirational because things that stood out for me were that you shared the emotional side of this, which anyone can read a business book, but when you see someone like you who's actually doing it, that's where I think that information is valuable. How does it impact you? How do you sleep at night? What drives you?
Yeah.
And it may not be the same factors for everybody, but it is super important to have that goal and that eye on the prize to keep going
Yeah.
in any sector. But femtech is particularly challenging because it is new, because it is emerging and evolving, and because it is women led. So, Shira, thank you so much for sharing
My
all of this
pleasure,
great
Jackie.
information with me today. And I will be following, I'm probably going to download. Do I download? See, I'm
Oh, you
such
just
a
have to, you just have
Luddite.
to log in. You just have to log in. No need to download.
Do I use a floppy disk?
I don't think that will work anymore, but maybe we can have tech support.
Thank you so much, here, and I look forward to keeping my eye on how you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Jackie.